welcome, Sarah, for joining us.
Hi.
Sarah and I met in the Pure Barre world.
Mhm.
We're both teachers here, and I remember I was crying to you. I was like, oh my God, I want to leave my 9 to 5. I remember you were sharing with me that day that your own experience of how you left, and you were really the one who uplifted me and gave me the confidence. Yes, I can do this. I remember, I think it was your class too, the day that I left my 9 to 5. I was hauling all my stuff in my trunk, and I'm like, I literally just came out of the office, and I need a class right now just to get off that stress. And so you were kind of with me in that pivotal moment. So I'm so excited to have you here today with us.
Well, and I remember that too, because I remember you would come in and every day you were just so defeated. And I was like, that was me. That was me a year ago. I knew where you were. I knew how challenging it was for you. And I do remember the day that you left and you came in and you were so excited.
Oh yeah, it was bringing back me to tears. And I was crying to you. I remember I was like, oh my God, I'm so scared. And then it was just all that stress relieving from me that day that I left the job.
Yeah.
And so
I remember feeling the same way. Yeah. You're so scared, but then when it happens, it's the best thing ever.
Right, exactly. Yeah. So tell us a little bit your story, where you were before, and then what has been in your business so far.
So let's see. Well, I went to school to get a master's in teaching special education. I really felt at the time that was my calling. That's where I was meant to be. So spent a lot of time, spent a lot of money getting that degree, got into the profession, and clearly it didn't work out for me. There were things I really loved about it, getting to spend time with my kids. I taught 5th grade special education. I was there for the kids at the end of the day, but there was a lot of things in the public education system that I couldn't get behind. I really struggled with it personally. Some things I either just didn't believe in. I wanted to do things my way, and that wasn't really an option. I felt the reason why I went into the profession, I wasn't able to truly get into that and practice that. So it was a struggle that I went to school for this, so I should stay in it. I had a financial obligation to stay in it, but at the same time, my heart was telling me that it wasn't right. So I did 1 full year, and I wanted to quit after the first year, but I told myself, Sarah, give it another year, because your first year of anything is really challenging, right? And I don't like to think of myself as a quitter. So I wanted to go into the next year with a hopeful mind. I was very optimistic. I had learned a lot my first year, so I was ready to apply it to my second year, and went into my second year, and within just a few weeks, I was just like, oh my gosh, no, this can't be it. So I made it through the second year, but the whole time, just something in my gut was telling me, this isn't right for you. This isn't your calling. And that was really, I kept it inside for a long time. I didn't even talk to my husband about it for a while, just because being honest about something like that is so hard. It was almost like a prideful thing, right? I didn't want to give up. I didn't want people to think of me as a quitter. But the second that I was able to open up to someone, in this case, my husband, right away, he validated my feelings with it. He was like, if your heart's not in it and your gut is telling you this isn't right, you need to listen to that. And for me, it kind of took someone else telling me that, which is crazy, right? I should be able to trust my gut. I should be able to trust my heart with something, but it really took someone that I trust and that I knew had my best interests at heart for them to tell me that. And that's when I was like, okay, I'm going to make the decision to leave. Now, granted, I had to still finish out the school year, right? I was never going to be one to just leave my kids. I was going to finish out the year with them. So I did finish out the year with them. At the time, I didn't know what I was going to do next. No idea. I was like, do I stay in this area working with kids with special needs? But what does that look like? Is there anything out there for me? So I kind of did some searching, but at the same time, I had this peacefulness about it that whatever's meant to happen is going to happen, which sounds, I don't know if it sounds cuckoo or crazy or whatever. But again, something in my gut was just like, the right thing's going to come along. Be patient, have your eyes out, have your ears out. And sure enough, in that spring, so we finished the school year at the end of May, early June. I would say it was maybe March. One of my best friends who owned Pure Barre Pooler, I was talking to her at dinner, And I distinctly remember I was like, I don't know what I'm going to do next. I guess I'm just going to teach Pure Barre, because at the time I was just teaching Pure Barre. And she looked at me and she was like, I know what you're going to do next. She goes, you're going to own Pure Barre Pooler with me. And I just looked at her and I was like, what? How is that even an option? Because she had a partner at the time. And I guess the partner was wanting to sell her half of the business. And so Jenna was like, you're going to buy her half of the business. And I'm looking at Jenna and I'm like, absolutely not. I don't think I'm made for entrepreneurship. That's not what I went to school for. How am I going to use my master's degree owning a fitness studio? And she was like, just think about it. Let it sit for a little bit. Think about it. And I was like, okay. And sure enough, I did. I sat with it and I was like, you know what? I've been teaching Pure Barre for, at that time, a few years. I loved it. I saw in a way that although it wasn't teaching kids with special needs, like I was still getting the opportunity to teach to others, just in a different environment, teaching to adults, helping to educate them with health and wellness. So still getting to educate people as well and getting to serve people. So I was like, okay, maybe this is it. This is where I'm supposed to be. And again, it was just something like my gut and my heart. It was, Sarah, do this. Again, talked to my husband about it and he was on board with it. So made the decision to get into entrepreneurship. And honestly, buying Pure Barre Pooler and being an owner of Pure Barre Pooler and leaving my 9 to 5 was the best decision I ever made.
Oh my God, I love that.
Such a long story.
No, I love that. You talk so much about listening to your gut, right? And how did your gut, when you were hearing I'm not meant for this, when you were teaching, what did that sound to you? How did you recognize it?
I recognized it because I was doing something, and it's so hard to get into this because unless you've been in the public school system and public education, it's hard to understand. But I think for me, what I was doing didn't align with what I believed in and how I thought working with these kids should look like and what that should be. Does that make sense? It was just, I didn't truly believe in what I was doing. And that went against kind of what I stood for. And so for me, I can't be in a career or work a profession that, number one, I don't believe in. And number two, that just I don't understand and doesn't make sense to me. And so in that role, it just didn't feel right in my heart. It went against things that I stood for. Again, it's hard without getting into the details about it. But I mean, I can give you an example. And any teachers, if they watch this, they're going to understand what I'm talking about. But for my kids with special needs, they were held to the same standards as the kids who did not have special needs, meaning they had to take the same test. So a big example at the end of the year, there's those big end of year tests that the kids have to take, right? And so my kids who have lower IQs, who there's just some of those things that they're not going to get. They've fallen behind. No matter how hard I try to teach them how to add and subtract fractions, it's just something that they may never get. Yet they would still have to spend hours at the end of the school year taking that same test. They would fail it. And then guess what? They would make them take it again. Their last few days of school, they would have to sit in a room for hours. And I'm going to cry thinking about it, like take the test. And I had to stand in there with them while they just sat there looking like so defeated, while the other kids got to enjoy end of school year stuff. And it was like, why are you making these kids retake this test? Like, they're not going to pass. We know we're going to pass them on to the next grade level. Why can't I teach them more functional stuff about how to live their everyday lives, how to go to a grocery store, right? And buy their groceries, how to count money, more stuff that they're really truly going to need in their lives. So that it was stuff like that just went against what I believed in. And it wasn't what I went into the profession to do. I didn't go into that profession to try to make my kids memorize and learn how to add and subtract fractions. I wanted to help them prepare for the real world. And I couldn't do that in that role.
So it's the system around it that you
Yeah.
didn't feel like was a good fit for you, and then
Correct.
how they were running that whole system.
Correct.
So it was that gut feeling that gave you that message, say, hey, this is something that's beyond maybe too big as one person
Right.
to change
Correct.
completely. And so the gut feeling was telling you, hey, you're supposed to be meant for something more.
Correct.
Yeah.
Somewhere where I can make a difference. And I think that's always what I've wanted to be able to do, is make a difference. And I felt like I couldn't do it in that role with the resources I was given.
Right.
Whereas in this role,
Yeah.
I was able to, right? I was my own boss.
Right.
I controlled the atmosphere. I controlled the environment. So it was just completely different, but in the best way.
Right.
Yeah.
And so you talked about you share with your husband finally.
Mm-hmm.
And so talk us through, how did you navigate your own emotions during that time? Because you didn't even want to admit it.
Yeah.
And then when you finally faced it, how did you walk us through that time period of yourself until you actually left it?
Yeah. So, I mean, at the time, Nick and I were married we got married in 2015 and I started teaching like in 2016, but he was with me when I was in grad school. So, I mean, he was my biggest cheerleader, my biggest support. He had my back in grad school. Whenever I had to study all those long hours, like he was always just cheering me on, like always helping me out with whatever he could. He wanted it for me so bad. He was so proud of me. I remember graduation and when you get hooded and everything, like his whole family was there. My whole family was there. And then when I got the teaching job at the school I wanted, he was over the moon about it. So he saw me, of course, struggle my first year and get really stressed out. But I feel like I kept being like, it's okay. I can do it. Like, I can keep doing this. Like, no matter how hard it gets, like, I will push through. And he was always like, yeah, that's so great, Sarah. Like, you're such a strong person that you can do that. So I wanted to be strong for him. I wanted to be inspiring for him. And again, I didn't want to look like a quitter after I had just spent all those years in school to get this degree for this. So on my hardest days, a lot of times I would go home and I would keep it in. I'd be like, it was a rough day. It was hard. Like, I'm going to go work out because that's always my stress relief. And I'd go work out and I'd kind of let it all out in a Pure Barre class. So then by the time I got home, it was no longer on me so much. But then I just got to a point where, I don't know, like a breaking point. And I'm sure a lot of people have been in these before, where it's like, you cannot hold it in any longer. And with me, because I do hold things in for so long, that when it's time for it to come out, it explodes. And it's something that I'm working on because it still happens to this day. But yeah, so it literally just got to a point where it exploded, had like an anxiety panic attack, and he saw it. He was with me, and I think it scared him, and he didn't realize how bad it actually was for me. So after that, we had to have a really honest conversation about it, and without even hesitating, because I was like, I think I need to get out of this. And he was like, you're going to get out of this. Like, it wasn't like, yeah, I think you do too. He was like, you're going to get out of it. I'm going to help you get out of it. I support you. Wow. And from there on, it was just, yeah.
Did you notice any differences since you made that decision from that point on? Was it better for you in terms of the stress level that you were feeling?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, like once I got out. Or like, do you mean like before I got out? Like from the time I told him until I got out?
Until you got out.
Because I was able to be honest with him all the time now. And maybe it was too much. Then he was like, wow, okay. But yeah, no, it was a big relief, just like getting it out, letting someone know, having them validate it, and then making the decision that I'm leaving. This is not for me. And then, the rest of the school year, I mean, even my fellow coworker and teachers, we'd be in like meetings, and I would just be there like rolling my eyes at stuff. And they'd look at me and they'd be like, you just like don't care. And I'm like, no, I'm not going to be here next year. Like, y'all are going to have to do this stuff. I'm not going to do this stuff. So it was a huge relief.
Yeah. And then you said you even took that decision without knowing what's going to be your next thing for you.
Yeah.
And then how did you get that confidence for yourself?
Yeah. Honestly, Nick is a big part of it, because that is a big thing that I haven't really like touched on with the whole story. I did a little bit, but yeah, it was scary not knowing what I was going to do next. And I was like, oh my gosh, people are going to ask me that. They're going to be like, well, what are you going to do? And I'm going to have to be like, I don't know. And they're going to be like, she's so naive. But no, again, having someone support me, be like, it's okay to not know. We'll figure it out. You'll figure it out. But also at the same time, I mean, I was young at the time, like 26, 27. Even though my master's degree was in something so specific, I just knew that there were other things that I could do. So I wasn't too worried about finding something else. I did want to make sure it was the right thing because of what just happened. I didn't want to go into something again only for that to happen again. So I didn't want to jump into anything real fast. Cause I mean, I got offers, like people, when they started finding out like I was leaving, there was a couple places out here in Pooler that works with like kids with autism. I got offered a position there, and some other people would chat with me, be like, oh, we'll come over to this school and do this. It's a lot better over here. And it was one of those things where just with them, my gut was like, nope, that's not it. That's not it. Like, Sarah, wait, just wait for the right thing. Don't jump into it. Don't rush into anything. And like, I mean, come March, there we go. Made a decision that changed my whole life.
Where did you get that feeling of don't jump into it instead of taking the first opportunity?
Experience. Yeah, just my past experience. And that's something that's hard not to do, right? Because a lot of times when someone gives you an opportunity, you immediately want to say yes, and you immediately want to jump into it and do it. And that, I feel like that's how I always was. Still am sometimes. Sometimes I got to pause and take a step and be like, okay, is this really the right decision for me? How am I going to handle this? How is this going to benefit not only myself, but my family now? I have other people to think about. And at the time I have Nick to think about too. It's not just about me anymore. So yes, I think just from past experiences and just wanting to make sure it's the right thing.
Yeah. It's almost like Nick was a huge role in all those changes for you. He was a supporter, and he gave you the permission to allow yourself to listen to your gut and to allow yourself to open up to him and to even taking on or waiting for that right opportunity.
I wish I could say it was just me, but it wouldn't be fair, because I wouldn't be here and I wouldn't have made those decisions without him, without my support person, you know?
Yeah, it's really when we're going through those big pivotal decision-making moments, is that support system that we have that can help us, okay, no, you're on the right track. Instead of hearing that voice of doubting or maybe trying to hide it, trying to suppress it, right? It's really those people around us, like what you did to me as well. You helped me when I was going through that moment. It's like, you're okay, right? That it's going to be okay. And so I love that about your story. And so the next step was you met Jenna, and then how did you, without knowing that you have any experience in entrepreneurship, how did you make that decision for yourself?
Oh gosh, I don't know. I mean, honestly, it's another thing again where it was like Jenna was my best friend at the time, and she was like, you can do this. Like, you would be great at this. Like, don't overthink it. Just do it. How fun would it be to run a business together? But all that aside, yeah, I mean, it was scary, because even though I had been teaching at the studio for a while, putting myself in an ownership position was very intimidating to me, because I'm such a people pleaser that I couldn't imagine myself being an owner and being a leader. So that was scary. But again, just with this, I love Pure Barre so much, like not just the technique, but the community and everything that the studio and the brand stood for. I love getting to teach a Pure Barre class. Like, I love everything about it. So I was like, if I love it so much and I have so much passion for this, and I have experience in teaching and educating, why wouldn't I be good at it? Right? Like, and there's going to be a learning curve involved, and I'm going to make mistakes, but like, I have to be willing to make mistakes in order to grow and push myself past my comfort zone. Like, that was a big thing too. It was like, it made me a little uncomfortable, but like in a good way, that I knew like I needed it. Like, I felt like it was something that was just going to help me grow as a person.
Were you looking for an opportunity like that to grow as your next level? Was that one of your criteria, or were you looking for the next step?
Yeah, I mean, like, what do you mean, like grow in the role?
Grow as a person, grow as
Sarah. No, yes, and I'm always trying to grow. So I'm always trying to put myself in positions and do things that are going to help me grow. Like, and that is a question I always ask myself before I make a decision too. Like, not only is it the right decision for me, but like, is it going to allow me to grow? How is it going to allow me to grow? And I knew with this, even though I knew nothing about entrepreneurship and owning a business, like, there were so many ways that it was going to help me grow as a person. It has to. Entrepreneurship, I mean, wow, like, talk about a humbling experience. But yeah, I mean, you learn so much, and you you grow just because you're put in situations that you don't know how to handle, and you got to figure it out. You are your own boss at the end of the day, and you got to make the decisions and own up to them as well. And so, yeah, no, absolutely.
I love that. It's almost like you took inventory of your passion. You love teaching already. You have these skills of teaching as a teacher capacity. You've already been teaching at Pure Barre, and then this opportunity came along and say, I can grow into even bigger than you had even imagined for yourself.
Right.
Probably.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Never had planned that for myself. And it's so funny because I remember thinking when I first started teaching Pure Barre, at the time, Brooke Nash owned the Savannah studio, and that's where I started teaching. And I just remember thinking, like, gosh, she just has like the best life. She gets to own a studio and like do this for a living. Like, wow, like I would never be able to do anything like that. I will never be able to do anything like that. And then 3 years later, the opportunity just like gets presented to me. I mean, literally just like a godsend. Like, it's crazy to even think about.
Yeah. And I truly believe when we tell the universe what we want, you knew what you did not want.
Yeah, correct.
You knew what you wanted, something that aligned with your values. You knew that your passion to get inventory of all these things. And then you kind of just gave it to God or to the universe. Say, hey, looking for something that aligns with you. Yeah. And then the opportunity just presented itself.
Yeah, right. It literally just like landed in my lap. I was like, all right, here we go.
I love that. And so throughout entrepreneurship, you talk about the experiences. You were not fully trained. You didn't have a degree in entrepreneurship. And so how did you get yourself to overcome those obstacles in entrepreneurship?
That's a good question. Honestly, I think I just had to go into it knowing like, hey, like, Sarah, you are going to make mistakes. There are going to be things that you don't know or that you have questions about, but the only way to learn is to go through it. So in my mind, it's the same thing with like teaching Pure Barre, right? It's like when you first start teaching, it's so overwhelming, but you have to allow yourself to be a beginner at it. But you have to pass that hump, and like as time goes on, you get more confident with things. So I think that's just kind of the mentality. I just went into ownership the same way I went into teaching Pure Barre, even the same way I went into teaching education. I had no idea what I was doing that first year, even though I went to school for it, and ended up being something totally unexpected and that I was not prepared for. But you just take it day by day. You let yourself be a beginner. You find mentors. In this case, Jenna, because she had already owned the business for a year herself. So she had learned so much in that first year. So I was really able to lean on her and use her to help me with ownership and learning the skills and getting the experience and getting more comfortable with it.
It's almost, whoever's listening to this, really, that's Sarah's programming of how she handles obstacles and challenges. Her thoughts are that you would take it day by day, and then whatever comes your way, you just have to figure it out.
Yeah.
And what you said is beautiful, is when you're a beginner, you cannot expect yourself to be at the same level as anybody else, but you're so willing to learn and so willing to seek out for the mentorship and that help and that support as well. And that's kind of what got you through all these patterns of yours to go through the teaching. Now they go through the admitting to yourself that this is not the right path, and then taking on entrepreneurship that way. And it's kind of how it's been your recipe of success for yourself.
Yeah. It's worked for me. I know when it worked for everyone else. And the people who can go into something and have 100% confidence and be like, I got this, like, no worries here. Like, I applaud them. That's amazing. It's just not me.
Yeah, everybody has a different recipe of success. And I love hearing all these differences because then it's about that thought, okay, I'm just a beginner. I cannot compare myself to somebody who's been doing it for so long.
Correct. Yeah. Allow yourself to be a beginner. There's beauty in that. I almost like miss it sometimes. Like sometimes I want to be a beginner at things because there's beauty in that process and seeing how you do grow with it and how much you learn. And like when you look back, it's like, wow, I knew nothing about that, and now I feel so confident in that. I don't know, it's cool.
Yeah, absolutely. Looking back and really celebrate all the progress that you made for yourself and towards your own growth as well, to becoming another version of Sarah.
And then you get to be a mentor for someone else when they come along.
Yeah. Looking back, how do you feel about taking on that degree of teaching and being on this path of entrepreneurship? Is there any regret, or what is that feeling looking back?
There's no regrets. I am glad I have my master's degree in teaching special ed, because I do think there's going to be a full circle moment. So this is where I'm at right now that I've been in entrepreneurship for over 5 years. I know that for sure. Now where I'm at is my gut and my heart is telling me that I will get back to serving people with special needs in some type of way. I don't know what that looks like yet. It hasn't presented itself to me. I have an idea of what I'm looking to do, but as far as what type of environment that's in, where that is, I don't know yet, but I feel it coming. My gut is telling me that it's right around the corner, and I can't wait to get back to serving people with special needs in some type of way. Yeah, I know.
You talk a lot about your gut. What does that gut sound like to you?
I don't know. It's just like, it's either a push to do something, it's like where I got to, or it's a very like, no, like restrain, step back. Like, I can't explain it other than like, it's so undeniable sometimes that like I have no choice but to listen to it.
Do you feel any sensation in your body, or is it, do you hear it like a voice? Or
it's just more of a voice, I would say. Although, I mean, now that you say that though, I've had very physical reactions to things, either in a negative way or a positive way. So yeah, I mean, I think you can absolutely something physically can happen to you with that gut.
Yeah. Can you think of an example?
Yes, I can, absolutely. So I have like these I call them stomach episodes. I don't know if you heard me talk about them before, but like, if I'm stressed, it happens. If I'm having a lot of anxiety, it happens. If something doesn't feel right, it happens. And like, I get this really bad tightening in my stomach. I mean, it will like drop me to my knees. Some days, like I can't, I've had to like have someone pick up my Pure Barre classes because of it before. I'm not going to get into all the side effects of it, but it's just, it takes over, and it really it allows me to like check in with myself and be like, what's going on right now? Why is this happening? There's a reason for it. And yeah, so that's one example of a physical reaction I've gotten in a negative way. In a positive way, I don't know so much. I mean, obviously just like feeling like those little butterflies and that tingling you get when you get really excited about something, right? I definitely had that when Jenna asked me about ownership of Pure Barre, even though I was like, what were you talking about? No way. Like, truly inside though, I was so excited with the little tingling butterflies. So yeah.
The reason I ask that, because I truly believe, listening to our gut has more wisdom than we realize. And sometimes we do tend to try to suppress it, kind of like the feeling that you were feeling your first year of teaching. Your gut has always been screaming to you.
Right.
And correct me if I'm wrong, it has probably spoken to you since the beginning, since you joined, right?
Yeah.
And so that voice will never go away.
Yeah, I know.
And the more we suppress it, actually, the stronger it will get for us.
It's
so
true.
We try to listen to it.
Yeah.
And and everybody's gut voice is different as well. And so that's why I asked you how that sounds to you.
Yeah.
For me, it sounds like we were just talking at a meeting this morning, and we were talking about this special real estate project that we want to do, like a co-working space. And one of the guy on the table, he said, well, it would be so awesome if he can bring in the autistic, oh my God, I can't believe this is happening. He works with autistic children. It's like, it would be awesome if we can build a business and have his children kind of running it, this business, and to kind of combine his special cause with the business as well. And as soon as he said that, and I still get that right now, it's like that tingling in my body. It's just that it just feels right.
Yeah.
So that mission,
right?
And really putting that mission behind the business.
Yeah.
Right? And so that's why I asked you. I love that. It's like everybody's gut voice is different, but we all need to learn to check in and listen to that, because there's wisdom in it, and that's what allowed you to leave the job that was not aligned for you, to really find opportunities that you feel passionate about.
Yes, exactly. big gut person right here.
Yeah. I love that.
Yeah.
And you're so good at teaching. I remember the very beginning, just I could feel your passion. You were actually the first one who welcomed me into the studio.
I do remember that. I feel like I do remember when you first started. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
You
so
were
crazy.
just so welcoming, and I truly believe now, looking back, it was your passionate energy that was exuding from you to really welcome me into the space.
Yeah.
I remember very clearly also you were in the studio, and I had my head down, we were in this position, and then you were looking up from underneath telling me I'm doing such a good job.
Yeah.
I believe that also came from your heart because you have such a passion for teaching.
Yeah.
And it's not something that you cannot pretend to do that.
You can't, and people notice. People notice if you're not passionate about the job you're doing. It's even if you think you're doing a good job of holding it in, it's written all over you. Exactly. You can't fake that. You cannot fake passion and your heart being in something. Yeah, I totally agree.
Looking back, and this is the reason why I do this podcast as well, we all have that passion and that secret desire inside of us. It's almost you were looking at the Savannah owners of the Pure Barre studios. Oh, if only I could do that. It would be so cool, right? And that was the secret desire, and it actually came true for you.
Yeah.
And so how do you feel now, the fact that you can follow a passion like that? And just what would you recommend to somebody who has a little secret desire?
Yeah, I mean, even at the time when I first started teaching, when I did the interview and audition, I knew it was going to happen for me, which is crazy. I don't want to sound like cocky. I got the job, but I started taking Pure Barre, fell in love with it. I truly felt like I was getting to a point with taking classes that like I could teach it. And right when I started to feel that way is when I got the email to come audition to be a teacher. I auditioned to be a teacher, met with the owner. Everything felt right about it. I felt at home. I felt like, man, this is really cool. At the time, I was getting my master's degree in special ed, but I was like, oh, if I could just teach Pure Barre all the time or do something with Pure Barre, that'd be amazing. But I wanted to follow through with my education. And then even at the time, I felt like there was a long-term plan with Pure Barre, and I didn't know what it was, but I knew I was in it for the long haul. I really felt like that in my heart. So when ownership came upon me, I was surprised, but also in a way, I think I knew the whole time. Deep down, I think I knew the whole time that something big was going to happen with Pure Barre. And so I guess my advice with anyone, if you're feeling that way with something, listen to your gut about it and kind of follow your gut with it. Find someone you can talk to about it, someone you trust, who you really feel you can be open and honest with, whether that's your spouse, your partner, a best friend, a mentor, just someone that you could really talk it out with and see what happens. Sometimes even just talking about it and putting it out there just opens the door for something to happen. Suppress it.
That's so true. Sometimes even just the fact of talking about it just lessens that stress about that whole thought.
Yeah.
It puts it into perspective and say, oh, it's not that bad after all, after you talk it through.
Exactly.
Yeah, I love that about you. Thank you so much, Sarah. If somebody wanted to find you, where can they find you so they can?
Oh gosh. Well, I mean, I am on social media, but I'm not a big poster on social media or anything, but just Sarah Delcore. But yeah, if you're in the area, if you live out here in Pooler at Pure Barre teaching, come take my class at Clean Juice Working. Come get a smoothie or juice. Yeah.
Sarah's classes are killer. Her classes are one of my favorite ones. And every time I see Sarah on the schedule, I'm like, oh my God,
I will literally probably be teaching Pure Barre until I'm 80 years old or until someone tells me I have to stop.
And we do have a lot of different ages in our studio, and it's perfectly good exercise for any ages as well.
Yep.
And her smoothies at Clean Juice, they're amazing. I just literally just had one right now. I didn't finish it yet. But they just feel so clean. I just love that.
Organic, clean.
Yeah.
Good food.
For sure. Thank you so much, Sarah.
Thanks, Suzanne. You made this easy.
Thank you.